Test, 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 test. Hello, hello. Hope everybody is doing well tonight. Welcome to another episode of me, me coughing incessantly. No, I hope not. Welcome to. Here we go. Is this working? Huh. Sorry, one second. I apologize if you are getting some inconsistent performance here. Looks like there's an issue with my OBS I'm trying to sort out. Bear with me one second. I'm going to make sure that this is set up correctly. Been one of those days. Yeah, I hope everybody's doing well in the meantime. Let me just sort this out and I will get started. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Little quirk with my OBS setup, but I think I solved it. So let me start over. Welcome, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Hope you've had a good week. Tonight we're going to be playing a little bit more Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. I really adore this game. I have played through it once, including like the alternate endings and stuff like that. So this is my second like official playthrough. And picking up where we left off last time, tonight is going to be a mostly casual run through where we're going to be taking our time kind of examining things as we go. I really like talking about how games establish like their opening act, what they do to kind of initially draw you in. As a game developer myself, I have found that sometimes just the act of getting a game started to begin with and making sure that your world is compelling enough to rope people in, to give them just enough information to go off of without being totally overwhelming. It's a very difficult balance to try to maintain. So those developers that do manage to succeed in this, I really do want to celebrate and demonstrate appreciation for. So with that being said, no particular agenda tonight. I'm just going to keep playing, commenting on things that I like, and I think this will probably be a pretty short series. I'm going to see if I can get a few more missions under my belt with this playthrough, and then we might switch things up based on a community poll for the next time. Of course, if there's any particular builds or anything you guys want me to try out or anything you're curious about from a game design dev perspective, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to get straight to it and hope that you guys enjoy. We'll be back for folks who are showing up looking for Naruto stuff. We'll be back on Sunday for our part 2 of the data book analysis slash Lightspeed Naruto discussion. And I'm excited to announce that I have a big shipment of random Naruto media that has arrived. So I've got like the chibi manga, I've got the like a variety of different novels, the TMNT crossover got here, so I'm gonna continue in whatever spare time I have, where, you know, I was gonna say whatever spare time I have over the next few days, I'm going to be, you know, trying to load up on info, but honestly, it's starting to get kind of beautiful outside. The crows are back, the nature is kind of starting to poke its head out from under the snow, so it would be unwise of me to spend all day inside. But, you know, hopefully we'll have some decent information coming up in the near future that I can use to help people understand stuff. That being said, on the website, mavens-roost.info, I started dumping a bunch of stuff where basically I have like this really extensive notes page that I've kind of been keeping to myself, but I'd like to be able to share it as a resource for people to use for like, hey, I want to look up this fight, or hey, I want to look up this character, or whatever. So I am still in a very lengthy process of formatting it, but my goal for like the end of March or April is to have like the data book, you know, facts and figures uploaded, that the Excel sheet formatted and uploaded, the notes with all the chapter breakdowns uploaded, as well as one new video. If I can try to squeeze in another short before then, I'd really like to. I want to do a short discussing the opening of Ocarina of Time. So I'm in the process of getting set up with, I want to try to play through a little bit of Ship of Harkinian, and see how I feel about that versus just like using, you know, a regular unmodded copy or whatever of the game. But that will be coming in the next couple of weeks. I'll probably be putting up a poll as well to ask people if there's anything specific they'd like me to try in terms of games. I know RE7 is coming out tomorrow. Actually, I have some colleagues who have worked on it, so I should be giving it a shot at some point. And then we've talked about trying Mouthwashing, Drakengard, Silent Hill 2, Demon Souls. Got a whole bunch of stuff that I want to check out. Nox would be fun in the coming months. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to just seeing where this stream goes over the next year. Let me catch up on chat before I dive in here. Sorry, it says, sorry, first of all, got to acknowledge the ritual. I liked seeing the 3 animals on display. Looks like they're all set and ready to go. Awesome. It's good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Hope the internship's going well. Would love to know more about what's going on there if you'd like to share. Sorry, it says, side note, my girlfriend knows exactly how to trigger the evil autism of my brain. Excuse me. Because I was ranting about a theory that made 0 sense, okay? So for context, they were using confirmed non-canon information. Oh, we know the Rito exists because of the mural in Twilight Princess. And I was like, no, we don't. No, they... Oh, sorry. No, we... No... Why is my brain frying? No, we know they don't exist. There we go. Because the artists of those murals told the fandom it isn't lore relevant. Oh, I think I remember you mentioning that, a little while ago. That makes sense. Okay. He's made it very clear he wasn't given any narrative intent. He was just told to make sure the walls weren't blurry like they were in TV or Twilight Princess on the Wii and GameCube. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting because it kind of overlaps with something that came out about the Souls community a little while ago when they released Dark Souls Remastered. Some of the murals and bas-reliefs and stuff that were not easily legible and visible became so, and so it led to people generating, more speculation about the significance of them. What does this mean for lore? But for some of the stuff, it just turns out that they were like, just like stock images, and so there was all this speculation about what does this mean? What secrets are they going to unlock? And it just kind of, turns out that you can really just read into it as much as you want, I guess. But at the end of the day, it's like, you have to be cautious about how that stuff is being used and keep the author's intent in mind. But yeah, let's see. Sorry, it says, so this is the equivalent of using the Skyward Sword poster in Majora's Mask 3D as lore. It's effing stupid. I mean, like, I wouldn't discount that. Like, I'll defer to your judgment, of course, but I wouldn't discount that offhand. Like, every piece of material that comes out for a franchise, I think, could potentially have like something hidden in it, like a secret or a little tidbit that might be worth examining. So I wouldn't discount it out of hand, but I mean, you'd probably know better. You definitely know better than I would, given Zelda lore. Which, by the way, before I forget, I finished listening through your remastered Zelda timeline video and really, really enjoyed it. Obviously, like, quite a bit of it went over my head in terms of all the details of it, but I love the effort that you put into it. I think overall it like provides a great amount of detail and context. I know you said that you seem to imply that you're a little self-conscious about your voice or whatever, but I love it when you're basically like, okay, children, I know there's been some discussion about this, but honestly, it's time to sit down, shut up, and listen, okay? You have, like, yeah, I'm not saying that you have, like, a bossy attitude or whatever, but, like, you do have a way of kind of cutting to the point and being like, yeah, I know what you're going to say, but hear me out. Hold your comments, because I'm about to put some fucking facts in front of you, and you're going to have to swallow them. I really love it when you kind of get down to brass tacks like that. But yeah, that video was super awesome. Sorry it took me so long to get to it. I hope Magog shows up too at some point, because I have been boning up on some of his Star Wars Battlefront 2 videos. I'd love to get back into that at some point. So yeah, I really appreciated it, and I hope you will continue to make videos when and if it feels appropriate. But let's see. Sorry, it says, and my girlfriend goes, well, there's evidence for it, and I knew she was rage baiting, but I took the bait, and she goes, the evidence is that it is possible, even though it's impossible. Oh my god, dude, that's the same, like, I get triggered the same way, as I'm sure you know, about the Naruto stuff. I actually just found another multiversal Naruto video today, which I'm going to respond to at some point, and it's like the same shit. So yeah, I can directly empathize with being triggered about that stuff. You were crashing the fuck out and both hate and love her. I have a feeling it's more skewed towards the love, right? Like, she just knows how to get under your skin and like get you worked up, I bet. Um, Evidence it's possible has the same energy as my sources that I made it the fuck up. Like she actually got such a visceral reaction out of me. Felt like I was hulking out like Jen Walters. Does she kind of understand that that's your proclivity at this point? Does she like? She doesn't take it personally, right? She understands that that's just how you like get passionate about stuff. You really dislike the TMNT crossover when it released. The way they characterized Leonardo was so. Yeah, I don't know. It's I flipped through it very very briefly, so I can't really say anything about it. But I mean the art looks pretty good, so I'm optimistic. But I also imagine it's going to be pretty goofy. Saria says, but at least they made April an adult. It feels like every adaptation is doing everything but that, and it's so annoying. She's supposed to be like an older sister. Yeah, that makes sense. Again, like I'm not that deep into TMNT lore, like at all. I don't even know the words of the theme song or anything, but like I had to um, try to expand my repertoire, so to speak, now that the crossover is happening. I couldn't let that slip. But yeah, I've got Family Day. I've got Innocent Heart, Demonic Blood, uh, the Scarlet Spring, Sakura's Story. What else? I got Star Pupil, whatever the fuck that is. Oh, I got I got a coloring book and a cooking book too, because I was just on a little shopping spree. So, um, I do want to do. I got a new webcam, and one of the things I want to do at some point is do um, like sort of a Lego building stream or a board game stream, something using the webcam. And so maybe I'll also do like a Naruto cooking stream at some point. Got some pretty decent recipes in there, and then some goofy shit. There's an entry that's just like chicken a la Itachi, and it's literally just a fucking chicken. And it's like, I don't know, is this supposed to be like narratively cooked with the manga, with the fucking Amaterasu or something? Like, it's just a fucking chicken, bro. So it's gonna be some goofy shit, I'm sure. But anyway, sorry I didn't say this. My girlfriend knows I'm very passionate, so she'll just say things to get a reaction out of me. Yeah, mine is the same way sometimes. She's actually pretty low key. I'm usually the instigator in the relationship, but it's nice when you have somebody that you can kind of rib in a nice way,
Raven, this request comes from Dafa, one of our affiliates.
Oh fuck, that never gets old.
The group has committed to use of military force to handle the Rubicon Liberation Front. Target for this mission is a squad of transport choppers. Destroy them. You'll encounter guerrilla resistance from Baus mass-produced MTs. They're no great concern. You performed adequately in your last sortie, Raven. This did not go unnoticed. We will be watching with interest to see what you bring to the team.
So something that I don't think is necessarily a flaw for From Software games, but it's definitely an area that could be explored more in the future, and I would like to see explored more in the future, is genuine role playing. Like, there are obviously decisions that you can make that affect your relationships with different characters and relationships with the overall narrative. There's certain things you can do to lock yourself out of world events or plot events or stuff in games like Elden Ring. But sorry, I don't know what's wrong with my throat today. Um, but at the end of the day, like there isn't really all that much role playing in games like Elden Ring, even though it's technically an RPG by some definitions. It's more of a third person action game set in a traditional RPG setting than an actual RPG. And going back and playing something like New Vegas, which I did a few weeks ago, it's like night and day the amount of like character expressivity you get to have in terms of actually, you know, doing what the traditional definition of role playing is. So I think for this game specifically, you know, getting thrust into the situation where you don't really have much agency or power over what's going on in the world, you have to kind of figure things out as you go. You're kind of playing the system, and trying to game it as you go. Makes sense, but also it might be nice if it gave you more of an option in a future game to kind of like study the factions for yourself, come to your own conclusions, and then make your decisions. It kind of feels like you're railroaded a lot in From Software games in terms of what happens in the narrative, or things just happen and you don't really have much insight into what's going on until like a second playthrough. Not that that's an invalid form of storytelling, but at this point, like you know, there's so many times when I'm playing Elden Ring, and like a little thing will happen. Like I come across a group of, what do you call them? The demi-humans, and they're fighting soldiers, like Godric soldiers or whatever. And I decide to help one group of them, and then the other group just attacks me outright. Or you know, when I wind up collaborating with Kenneth Haidt and get on his good side, and then he's actively working with the Albinorics, or not the Albinorics, the demi-humans, but then I go into like access his little castle, and there are demi-humans in his castle, and I wind up slaughtering them every single time I go through and, you know, play through the level. It doesn't feel appropriate, right? It feels like there should be a little bit more opportunity for exploration, expression, whatever you want to call it, right? So again, not a problem. And with this game in particular, feeling like you are a cog in the machine until very late in the game is actually entirely appropriate. But at the same time, it's like I want to see. I don't really want an Elden Ring 2 if Elden Ring 2 is going to be Elden Ring again. You know what I mean? Like, I really want to see them make a full on RPG, or just like, you know, if they make a new IP, really lean into the action side of it. I kind of like the fact, I guess, if they were gonna hold off and wait for another game before doing something that was more RPG intensive, I guess like having this game be more along the lines of Sekiro and be like a have a more fixed narrative and your character have a more fixed role in it makes sense. I just hope that they don't rule out that possibility of continuing to explore that. From Software has done such an amazing job of like, I want to say dominating the space of the action RPG, but like really, one second, really just like kind of, you know, exemplifying what the genre is capable of and pushing it forward in terms of innovation and scale and scope and storytelling acumen. And they've already kind of figured that out, right? They can always do better, I guess, but there's not as much headroom for them to expand into because they've already like mastered that aspect of their craft. The RPG aspect, the nuanced storytelling, the character personality expressionism, so to speak, is something that I think they can stand to investigate a little bit more, and I want to see what they do with that. That being said, Sorry says, also, I was just searching the Nintendo eShop and saw this game called Wizard 101, and I was so confused. And my sis was like, you not knowing Wizard 101 makes me feel so old. Just pretend you know it. I feel like sometime around this time last year, we were talking about it on one of the Naruto streams. Is it an anime related game? Like something along those lines? Nice, okay. So I do kind of like the way that this game also makes you feel like a total badass. Um, and you get like so sucked into just like the act of um, feeling how powerful it is to be, um, you know, to inhabit this alternate skin of the armored core. And then you can kind of get a head rush from that, I guess is one way to put it, and stop thinking as much about what you're actually doing. And that in and of itself can be like a important storytelling element as well, right? Like, what, I'm not doing very well. I'm distracted. But yeah, it's really hard actually to play this game and talk compared to some of the other games. So pardon me if I wind up like um, getting a little bit distracted from time to time. But yeah, let's see if I can take this thing out and then get back to the pseudo philosophizing. Basically, what I was gonna try to say is that I think this game does a good job of like suckering you in or luring you into the power fantasy, so to speak, and then you can wind up getting caught up in that power fantasy and forgetting about like the horrible things that you're doing, which I'm guessing is probably intentional. Yeah, I totally whiffed that. Sorry says, I think it used to be an old PC game. I like that penguin. Oh, like that penguin, like Club Penguin, you mean? Um, yeah, it could be. I it's the only old penguin game I can think of, although there might be something else. But yeah, at the end of the day, like especially when you start this game, you're probably just going to be like kind of immersing yourself in how good it feels to pilot the AC, the novelty of it, the excitement of it. That's what's going to be dominating your perception. And so I guess like you could argue that the game like plays into the idea that you're getting kind of allured like lured in by the technology and by the power fantasy and everything. So you as a player are sort of succumbing to the same sorts of things that the villains in the story are as well. And then eventually, like you start to realize the consequences and the trade offs. You know, the price for which not just yourself but other people need to pay in order to experience this so-called fantasy. And then you get a chance to reflect on your actions after the fact, and it becomes a sobering experience. And that can be an entirely valid form of storytelling and an actually very compelling sort of narrative. So, you know, it's not like you have to employ um, like a very specific sort of role playing um, in order to tell a good story or something like that. And I think like I do genuinely enjoy the sort of storytelling where it's like you play through the game once and you have a certain perspective, and then the game actively encourages you to play through it again with your prior knowledge. I think new game pluses can be kind of a hard sell, and figuring out how to do those in a way that feels compelling can be challenging. And you know, honestly, not to sound too utilitarian about it, but um, if you have a compelling enough story, you can actually wind up, quote unquote, getting away with a lot of, you know, reused assets if there's a narrative reason for you to replay certain things. Like Nier Automata is a great example. I'm not going to spoil anything in particular, but you know, if you play the game at all, that if you get to one of the game's endings and then you decide to go back and play it some more, new things will start to be made very readily apparent, and without even introducing any new mechanics or anything like that, like literally just the same exact enemies, the same exact locations, music, everything, it still feels like vastly different because you're now experiencing it through a different like lens of perception with a different perspective. um, and it is kind of powerful, you know, like sometimes it can feel as a developer like it's genuinely hard to justify anything you do because like sooner or later, especially if you're on like the production side, sooner or later every decision you make is going to come under scrutiny by some rich guy who doesn't necessarily know anything about games or care about games, and they're going to ask you, why is this specific thing, like you down to like, why is this $1,000 of expenditure worth it, explain it to me. And like when it comes down to it, depending on who you're talking to, it can be very difficult to justify like, well, we need to put in this extra, I know, Walter, we need to put in this extra weapon set because it'll make the game like sell this percent much more, or like we can justify putting in a multiplayer game, you know, that will be, or multiplayer mode to the game, um, or having it stay single player or whatever. Like we justify putting in a new game plus because we want to tell the story. Like explaining to somebody whose perspective is entirely business based, who doesn't really know much about video games as a medium, beyond a money making like venture capital perspective, so to speak, why having a 1 second, why having a, you know, new game plus mode is good, like having an expansive story that evolves is good. It's like kind of hard to do sometimes, but you can get a huge return on your investment by like, you know, you turn a game that has 30 hours of content into an 80-hour game by just tweaking the story a little bit. That's a massive return on your investment, and even like the most skeptical shithead of like marketing only people, not to say that all marketing people are shitheads, just to be very clear, but like even somebody who like genuinely doesn't care about the medium at all is genuinely like purely financially motivated, which isn't even like all that common. Usually people are more understanding than they get credit for. But even that person will probably be able to understand like, okay, we are going to be able to say that this is an 80-hour experience, but you know, the final 30 hours that we're putting in are going to cost us far, far less than the first 20, 30, etc. Damn, okay, ow, that hurt. Wasn't expecting that. I do think that it's quite significant that they are letting you see this tetrapod, right? They're giving you this little mini boss fight. There's quite a lot of like. Sorry, one second. There's a lot of like subtle both storytelling and player instruction that's happening here. So, you know, obviously one of the biggest appeals of this game, even if you don't know anything about the world or care anything about the story or anything like that, is like, how can I say? It's the power fantasy of not only, you know, being in a cool badass fucking robot blowing the fuck out of fucking shit and blowing it up and being cool, big ass guns and shit, but it's also like making the robot feel like an extension of yourself. It's not a robot, you know, like making the mecha feel like an extension of yourself and making it feel like, you know, you're kind of blending with the machine. You are one with it. And as a result, in order to really sell that fantasy both narratively and mechanically, there needs to be a deep system in place for player expression through their ACs. However, you know, with a vast amount of different options, you can wind up intimidating, especially new players to the franchise, and making people feel like they're going to be making the wrong decisions. Like, I don't want to spend the money on this because what if I waste it? Or, like, I don't know if, like, this will be a safe choice or if I'll really enjoy this or whatever. So, a great way to do that, it's very simple, but it's still a very effective technique, is to just be like, okay, let's put some enemies pretty early on that show the character alternate builds. We talked about this a little bit with the tutorial before, but the tutorial can kind of feel like an artificial space. It's not quite as exciting. I mean, the arena is, but, you know, just a bland tutorial level with no narrative context that's apparent to the player might be like a harder sell. But now, you know, if you associate the tetrapod specifically with like, ooh, this is like a special machine that belongs to the resistance, it's clearly very important to them because they place a higher value on it over their like base MTs. It presented like a little bit of a challenge and it was effective against me even though nothing else was. So maybe if I go up against ACs later on, then like an MT will be you know, useful to me as well. Like, there's a lot of subtle possibility that winds up getting built in there, so to speak.
Looks like you got them all.
That can be very useful for just like seeding possibilities for the future, inspiring curiosity, etc. And especially in a game where like interrupting shit with a bunch of cutscenes would just slow down the momentum, like bring everything to a grinding halt and be super annoying. I think it's actually really a smart way to try to increase the player's curiosity and like seed, like I said before, like seed information for the future, if that makes sense. Um, Sorry, it says I can't lie. Something about the camera angles makes me feel like this game is playing with action figures. Yeah, so I mean, you'll see it from time to time, but the whole perspective, the way this game is set up, you kind of start to forget how massive these things are. But they are like
I see your
the
back
size of
61.
buildings, you know, and they're moving at insane speeds.
Liberation Front is a hindrance to expanding their coral survey. But to the Rubiconians, your actions are only helping the corps with their invasion. It's just a job, 621. All of it.
Okay, so I do wish that there was like a little pip, a little UI element showing you which categories you had a new purchase in. I keep forgetting. Is it the L unit? Forget. Oh, this one. That's right. I was going to try for duels there. Okay. Let's see. We got any new parts in stock? Don't really tend to like the Ransetsu all that much. The bazookas are a lot of fun, but they're so bulky. So I think I'm going to keep my current thing. Perhaps targets in a pincher trajectory, limiting evasive options. Full multi-lock. So this is ×4, right? Full shield. Yeah, I think I'm good with that stuff. I'm probably going to save up and try to get some. I really do like using missiles, so Ronald's developed that for designed to reduce missile lock time. Okay, so yeah, it looks like this decreases my weight, but it does help out with missiles. So I might try this actually and see how that goes. I think the economy in this game is actually pretty well balanced as well, because um, they do a pretty good job of increasing the amount of money that you have per mission to allow for maybe one or two upgrades, especially if you sell things, without being too overwhelming. So you always have something that you're saving up for, but you always have a few things that are relatively accessible. It doesn't feel like everything is entirely out of your reach, but it also doesn't feel like you're gonna splurge and get anything that's like game breaking too early, right? That can be a very difficult balance to achieve, and I think they did a really good job at that.
621. It's an open call from the Archivist Group.
To all independent mercenaries, this request comes from Schneider of the Archivist Group. Dafeng, one of our adversaries allied with Balaam, has introduced a new tester AC. It's a sample model from an external architect, featuring extensive assembly optimizations. In the hands of an experienced pilot, it will pose a threat far too great to ignore. This brings me to the request. Intercept delivery of the tester AC and destroy it. The Archivist Group looks forward to news of your success. Briefing over, and happy hunting.
I actually think the selection of this particular mission at this particular time, like I didn't realize it at first, but it actually feels very thematically appropriate because you yourself are somebody who is new to this place. You are testing out your own AC. You're you're an external agent who's experimenting with parts and builds and stuff like that, and you're just starting to get the hang of things, and now you're about to encounter somebody who is going through something similar. But whereas you have this cool badass, like, I got another job for you, 621, you know, you got a cool name, you get a cool thing, your name is Raven, and you're picking through the battlefield, and you know, all the corporations want you. Well, now let's see what's on the other side of that. Let's see if the battlefield is really an even playing field.
Product sample, but it's still an AC. Stay sharp, 621.
Main system activating combat mode.
Okay, here we go. I do like the symmetry in the missile launchers on the back. Pretty basic, but it's true.
Target. Now's the time, 621.
I will say that, like, in terms of actual exploration and all that through the level, I wind up relying on my scanner quite a bit. This is such a minor nitpick, but I do feel like the little visual flash that you get when the scan beacon starts to first appear is pretty distracting. I'm sorry if people on the, like, watching the stream wind up finding that annoying as well, you know?
We're under attack! Must be the locals.
That pilot's just a trainee on delivery duty, but don't let your guard down.
I'll deal with the mech. I've been training for this.
This AC is
Nice.
reached breaking point. Go for a direct hit.
Damn it! I can't die like this.
Yeah, so it's a little subtle, but the name of the person piloting it is Student Pilot.
Fail this mission.
And you can tell also by the way that he fights that he's not, like, being super aggressive, right? He's kind of just, you know, he's trying to get at you, but he doesn't really have the full slick combo down.
Kills for credits.
Firing these.
It's time we wrap this up.
Well, those missiles are actually applying decent pressure. It actually worked to dodge that.
Kits remaining.
Yeah, I've been training for this fucking dies. Yeah, it's kind of tragic though. I want to see if he has any additional like lines of dialogue. I don't think he does. Oh, damn, okay. That actually hurt. I think he does have a special line of dialogue if you let him kill you, but can't afford that.
I just wanted to call sign of my own. Enemy AC destroyed. That's it for this job, 621. Return to base.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you don't feel a little bit gross about that, if you don't start to doubt, like, whether what you're doing here, you know, it is, like, actually morally justified, that should plant the seed to keep using that metaphor. Also, I think that maybe, depending on the culture that you're in, depending on sort of what news media you've grown up with and all that, one second, actually.
Well, Handler Walter. The way your hound's been up in my business, I'm surprised you'd even dare to call. Michigan, about my proposal. Yeah, you sure about that? I'll be working your hound just as hard as any other red gun. Gen 4s can be emotionally withdrawn. They need a shot in the arm every now and then. Then you got a deal. I'll send Volta and Iguazu. They'll give your latest hound a proper red gun welcome.
Hmm. 626, is that a reference to Lilo and Stitch?
621. About the tester AC you downed. That was being shipped to the Red Guns, Balam's in-house AC squad. They're Balam's main force, and its members are no amateurs. Remember who you're messing with.
Yeah, it's really interesting. This form of storytelling takes such a fucking cynical tone right off the bat, right? It's like you're so used to in so many video games, the narratives have you either. I guess this doesn't apply to stuff like Vampire Survivors or those sorts of games that I've been playing lately, but there's usually like an objective sort of you know situation where, okay, this is the enemy, this is the looming or this is like the looming threat, right? And there might be enemy factions and allied factions, there might be morally gray factions that you can choose to side with or fight against, etc., but at the end of the day there is like a clear moral compulsion to do X, Y, or Z thing, and there's a certain like alignment that your character tends to go for naturally, which you might have the opportunity to push back against, maybe. In this game, though, you will go from performing a mission. You'll like perform a mission that severely like inconveniences and leads to the death of a member of a corporation, and they'll be like, "Hey, good job fucking us up. Do you want to work for us and fuck somebody else up? We'll pay you." And then you'll go and fight that corporation. And they'll be like, "Hey, good job destroying us. Like, come work for us and destroy other people." Right? It's like it's all very utilitarian, and seeing how people form loyalties and allegiances and like try to maintain some sort of, I guess, moral compass amidst that brutal utilitarian cynicism is really fascinating in and of itself. Model reflects your light, highly stable build. So this is bringing my armor down a little bit, but it's giving me more stability and recovery, reducing my weight. Sometimes adding weight can be good though. Yeah, I think I've always liked this head. I don't know how to pronounce that. Like, is it Nachtreier, something like that? But I usually gravitate towards the same parts in every bed. Nachtreicher, I think. Not really sure how to pronounce that. Somebody who knows German can let me know. Oh yes, yeah. I think did we talk about Lilo and Stitch recently? I just watched the original, and it's well, my partner and I had watched the remake and then gone back and watched the original, and oh my god, the remake, like, way to completely and utterly miss the fucking point. But the original is like so fucking beautiful, so charming, it's so wonderful.
Check the briefing. Heard the good news from Walter, did ya? Good. Sit your ass down and listen.
Welcome to your new favorite character.
I'll be sending 2 good-for-nothing maggots from the Red Guns, Gun 4 Volta and Gun 5 Iguazu. You're just gonna be tagging along on ass-wiping duty.
So goofy, I love it.
Assigning you the call sign Gun 13, a lucky little number that just became available. Gun 13, sound off! Good enough. Now go get ready!
Literally, sound off. Literally says fucking nothing. Okay, fine, whatever. Like, he's bought into his own hype so much. He's like Vegeta. He is the hype. Oh wait, no. I don't want to repeat the briefing. Okay.
Gun 13, huh? I'll stick with 621. Don't let the Red Guns teach you bad manners.
All those little gestures that like Walter is kind of protective of you in his own way. I forget exactly what the nature of the relationship is, but like, yeah, he has his own kind of gruff, aloof way of caring about you. He still does.
Balaam Group AC Squad Red Guns reporting for duty. Commence mission.
So if you actually beat them to it, they have different dialogue, if I remember correctly. Or if you like hang back and do nothing.
Independent merc. Who's the wise guy who decided the Red Gun should be taking care of some freelancer?
Who gives a shit? We'll handle this mission ourselves. One target
Oh,
destroyed.
there we go.
Hey, freelancer. I know one even told you why we're here. Well, let's move the Red Guns. You're gonna go climb the wall. This is just target practice. When we're done, the locals' little base is next.
It's so hard to like stay focused on like chatting or whatever because this game is so fucking immersive. Of course, I'm talking over the best line in the game. Why don't you start our sewing club?
You're not a total amateur.
Shut up.
Gun 4. Can't say I considered you a pro either. We don't need backseat drivers in the Red Guns. Shape up or ship out. 621. Eradicate the frontline MTs.
It's just so like there's a certain sense of beauty that comes with like the motion involved in this game. Like you just start to get into the rhythm of it. It really does feel like a rhythm game after a while.
That was just the warm-up. Look alive, maggots! 2 generators to go. Keep moving, 621.
And all the little sound cues too, like the unique sound cue that you get when your boost runs out, when your energy is starting to regenerate.
Sewing club, I see. That attitude won't get you far on Rubicon. Book can pilot better than you sew.
He's really committed to that bit too. It's just one of those things where like I know there's a good friend of mine who would probably like swear off ever playing the game if he heard that dialogue because he would be like, this is so cringy, right? And I guess you could argue that it's quote unquote bad or so bad it's good, but and this is one of the things where I would like to play the Japanese dub or just a dub in another language to see how it
The Rubiconians will never yield.
how it holds up, you know.
Home and armored
But
coffins.
I could definitely understand
We stand as one.
why somebody might find it distracting, but I just find it charming.
This junk is barely different from an MT. Gun 4, you're not exactly cutting edge either. You want to be next on the scrap heap?
Yeah, so it's cool that you also get a chance to like fight this guy who is quite imposing for his own like weight class with some allies, and then you also have an opportunity to encounter him in the arena. A good excuse to like try out new builds, get excited for new parts and stuff like that. It's interesting that like
Why be a mere pawn?
yeah.
What honor is there in
One sec.
serving corporations that exist only to kill and plunder?
What's kind of ironic, I think, about this fight as well, is that you wind up building a sense of camaraderie
Scavengers.
with the other two ACs that you're fighting with,
I've failed you.
just due to the virtue of the fact that you are fighting alongside them. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but
Tagging along anymore.
something about the fact that, like, even...
Destroy that stinking old dam. We've got a job to do here.
Okay, chill.
Looks like we got competition.
One second. Keep getting distracted.
Freelancer.
Is there still another objective? Oh yeah. Um, yeah. So basically, I don't know how to describe this, but something about just like having a common enemy that I was fighting against um, immediately started to make me feel a sense of like closeness and camaraderie with these two people that I don't even know. And by people, I mean like these big robot suits that I guess have humans in them that I can't even really see, that I never actually see the faces of. But something about the fact that, like, hey, I'm fighting against this thing and then other people are also fighting against that thing. We're collaborating. Something about that just felt viscerally satisfying. And so like I now feel a connection to these two Iguazu and Volta just because we've shared like a combat. I don't know anything about them or about their ethics or about like whether or not our conflict with the opponents that we happened to be, by chance facing off against is at all justified. But I want to fight alongside them again because now we've started to build this rapport and it feels like we earned something that belongs to us, if that makes sense. Um, and so it's ironic that like that's that's happening while our enemy is the one who's speaking up about like you know we're going to fight for the liberation of Rubicon. We're going to stand by our morals and values. Like we're the ones who are actually trying to do something we believe in here and sacrificing ourselves. But the bonds that you're forming ostensibly are with people who are cold and distant and purely utilitarian and just like money driven. But then again, like what's his name? G1 also seems to have like his own image that he's bought into. He has his own pride. It's a little exaggerated, but um, you know, you might imagine that he was in the service previously and he has like a history that he's proud of that he's trying to keep alive. But there's some nuance there.
You got lucky, Merc. You were the only warm body they could find. The red guns are going to be first over the wall. Have fun watching from the sidelines.
Got a job for you, 621. This one's a request from the Arquebus Group.
Raven, this request comes from Schneider, an Arquebus subsidiary.
Just grabbing a bite to eat during the
Mission will take
cutscene.
place
Sorry.
in the Bonadea dunes of Western Belius. Our coral investigation there is being blocked by the Strider, a Rubicon Liberation Front mining ship. You are to destroy it. The Strider is a mobile resource base that was extensively weaponized by the Liberation Front. Call it the crowning glory of their efforts to militarize into an anti-corporate force. Your attack will focus on the Eye, a giant laser cannon connected directly to the main generator. It's protected by a shield, which is powered by auxiliary sub-generators. These should be your first targets. This concludes the briefing. Good luck.
Yeah, so I think this mission both exposes the strengths and weaknesses of this game, where at least in terms of its mission design, it feels like as long as you buy into the hype and you basically play the game the way that it wants you to play, it's fucking brilliant. But it's extremely brittle if you wind up, maybe not extremely, but like if you wind up like veering too far off of the intended course, the game doesn't handle that super gracefully. It kind of feels like it has this set piece that it wants you to focus on, and it doesn't really know what to do with you if you don't really adhere to that. Not that that's a terrible thing at the end of the day. It's fine. And honestly, it's the sort of thing where, like, if there weren't any open space in the level at all, you'd probably just be like, okay, we're in a scripted sequence or whatever, right? Excuse me. So it really just kind of comes down to presentation and preference. I think it's fine. I think there's certain things that, like, you're not going to be able to please everyone or cover every single one of your bases or whatnot. So, just picking your battles, and in this case, they chose to focus on the, you know, I guess like have enough faith in the players being intrigued by the set piece that they would be gravitating towards it and not try to break the level too much. And I think that was a fair compromise, honestly. Is there a more elegant way to handle it, like putting some cliffs around the area where if you go off of them, they fall off, or like having an airstrike come in and, and nuke you or something? I guess you could think of that, but honestly, it doesn't bother me that much. As a developer, it's an interesting challenge. So it's like, okay, well, what are the other ways that we could have maybe solved this problem more gracefully? But as a player, it doesn't really bother me that much. And you'll see what I mean once I actually start to get into the level itself. Saria says, I think when it comes to dialogue, people just have a lot of personal bias. You'll have someone say certain dialogue is corny, but then expect you to take Alice, Sweet Alice, seriously. And I like that movie, but you get what I mean. It's kind of just like, you just have to accept that it's a preference thing. Yeah, I think so. If we had had this conversation like 5 years ago, I was definitely in a mindset or paradigm back then where I was like, there are objective ways to be good or bad, with parts of art, like there is such a thing as objectively good or objectively bad dialogue. And then there is also room for personal preference, and those two things are separate. But like, I was on like a fucking die-hard, laser-focused mission to establish objective ways of understanding and interpreting things, and I was like really committed to the idea that like we should figure out what is objectively good and bad, and then we should stick to those standards, as opposed to, I don't know, that good friend of mine that I mentioned before kind of helped me see things with a little bit more nuance, I guess.
Yes, sir. Coral, abide with Rubicon.
I love the fact that like this is obviously like a very clearly imposing, oh Jesus, yeah, very imposing, very threatening device that's being implemented over here, right? This the Strider. But also it's like, despite the fact that it is extremely like menacing, intimidating, whatever, it is also a weaponized like mining vessel. It was never intended originally to be a weapon. And it just kind of goes to show that the RLF are indeed an underdog organization, right? Like, they've managed to still come up with like this insanely impressive weaponry, and find a way to improvise a solution to their predicament. And like, on the one hand, you have the fact that this like scrappy group of underdogs was able to come up with something this impressive despite their clear disadvantages, is, to reiterate, just genuinely impressive. And they managed to pose like a significant, serious threat to the corporations who have essentially like an infinite supply of ACs coming in, like not literally infinite, but figuratively infinite resources and opportunities for replenishment. They turn like this manifestation of rust into something that is like a rust elemental, basically, into something that was capable of threatening those big corporations. It's just a testament to their resilience and to their creativity and all that, right? Now, of course, if I ignored this thing and went off and fucked around in the desert, like, it would kind of ruin this, because it would slowly just sort of meander away. I don't think the idea of like, you know, there being just that. So from a level design standpoint, I guess you could argue that getting onto this thing feels a little too convenient, right? It's like, it just so happens to be walking past this little cliff, and you get here at just the right time. You have a very small window to actually do anything. It doesn't really. I think maybe a more elegant way of designing this would have been to have put the Strider in kind of a big open area. Maybe do something a little bit more like one of the divine beasts from recent Zelda games, and basically just be like, well, this is a roaming puzzle. It's up to you to figure out how to get on it, right? And then you would have to figure out how to like strip the armor, and then like blow away the limbs and find a way to climb up it. And I have a feeling that that might have been their original intention. and then they just like had whatever limitations they had for this particular project. You can see the vision there. You can see the potential. It's a little it's a little disappointing that they didn't get a chance to like fully realize that. Of course, that's just my interpretation, though.
The enemy AC! Remember, we fight for the coral. Defend the sub-generators.
It still feels really fucking cool to be a part of this massive thing and to see like what the RLF, I mean, if nothing, if you haven't been made curious about the RLF's like fight, their plight or whatever by this point, you should be curious about like what they're accomplishing. You should be curious about them as an organization, so to speak, based on like what they've managed to pull off by putting this thing together, right? So I think this is a great way of like just teaching you about the organization, about their capabilities, their resourcefulness, and getting you interested in them from a mechanical standpoint, even if you're not like all that invested in them personality wise or whatever, or if you don't have enough information to go off of based on their like, ah shit, that was
Remember the hardships that made us.
way too risky.
Remember that when Rubicon burned, we endured.
One repair kit remaining.
Yeah, I'm playing very non-safe, non-efficiently.
Just one left.
Strider is the flagship of our war. Hold the line. Defend the ship with
Yeah, let's
your
see, I don't remember how... Oh, yeah, this is cool. I mean, it's just a really fucking cool set piece, too. But then again, like, if I were to fall off right now, I don't think there's any way to get back on it. So, despite, like, the scale and the size and the majesty of it, it does kind of feel like you really don't have a whole lot of room for expressiveness in how you approach, like, engaging with the combat puzzle that they presented with you. But that being said, I also think that, like, if you're interested in game design at all, I highly recommend, well, first of all, playing the games, you know, Portal and Half-Life 2 and all that. But also, when you're done playing them, Portal only will take you like maybe 2 to 4 hours. When you're done playing it, go back and replay it with the developer commentary on, because they're so transparent and so informative about the challenges they faced and how they tried to circumvent them and all that. You can learn so much just from like listening to their takes on how they solve certain problems. And one of the things that they mention is that it was nearly impossible to get people to look up for whatever reason. Maybe it's different nowadays because, you know, it's like almost 20 years later. But yeah, 19 years ago, I think Portal 1 came out. But especially at the time, Portal is such a vertical game, right? There's so many instances in the game where you're shooting portals at the ceilings, at the walls, and stuff like that. Vertical movement and like movement in a full 3D space. 6 degrees of freedom is that term for it. Anyway, it's very important. It's like intrinsically important to the game. And just getting players to feel comfortable and confident enough to look up was a massive fucking challenge, because most people are more comfortable like just you know, maybe looking down on occasion, but basically keeping the vertical axis relatively flat. One of the challenges of a game like this, especially for new players, has to be getting people to essentially learn to fly, which, when you think about it, is pretty unnatural for our human brains. Despite the fact that we, you know, we've all grown up with airplanes and stuff like that, it's still kind of a mind-blowing concept. And to train that in a way that feels empowering and not overly frustrating or whatever, like, it's a challenge for sure. And I'm probably going to die. I totally miscalculated here. Oof, okay. I do think this part of the combat puzzle here is, like, pretty well implemented, right? Like, having this like a turret. It kind of reminds me of like the angels from the end of the Dark Souls 3 DLC.
Now you've got the target in your sights.
Oh shit, come on, do the missiles, please. Please, 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 please. What are you doing? I always really like the idea of like having an enemy that is like feels extremely powerful, maybe even overpowered at first, but then the game like giving you an opportunity to subvert that power. So the fact that this like massive thing was able to basically like fire at you with impunity from a distance, and you could really do pretty much nothing against it, winds up being completely subverted when you get close to it, and it can barely move to keep up with you, right? You flip this thing from being nearly omnipotent to basically being helpless, and that can be such a cool, powerful like power fantasy in and of itself. Just like subverting something that felt omnipotent into something that feels almost trivial by comparison. I wonder if I go this way.
Devastating the planet. Or combined with Rubicon.
See that, 621? The Strider's blowing itself up. What a fitting end for something built to fail.
It's so cynical. There really has got to be one of the most impressive like set pieces in a From Software game, though, especially from an interactive standpoint. Like obviously, seeing Liurnia for the first time or whatever from a cliffside is more breathtaking than this, I suppose. But as something that's mobile and interactable and ostensibly like a living level, right? It's very impressive from a design standpoint.
You must be the handler, I presume, for the independent mercenary Raven.
Honored to make your acquaintance, V2 Snail.
I understand you want to join Operation Wall Climber. You do realize that disposing of some Liberation Front garbage hardly qualifies you. Know your place, you meager dog sitter. The answer is no.
I hear you're deploying V1 again. Must be rough only having one good pilot to rely on.
Oh? Are you suggesting your dog can take Freud's place?
You'll see. Just give us the chance.
Very well, then. We're also deploying V4. Who's been equally brazen of late? Let's see how they both perform.
I will say the game does do a pretty good job, I think, of establishing a compelling, varied, and colorful collection of characters from the get-go. We don't really know anybody from the RLF yet, but we're only a couple hours into the game, and we've had a couple of hints dropped about like Domayan, Father Domayan, and stuff like that.
I am thrilled to have issued you the request. Allow me to introduce myself. I am the Archivist Group's mercenary liaison. V8 Pater, at your service. I think I'll enjoy doing business with you.
Okay, let's take a look at the new training, just to keep up with everything. Yeah, so by this point in the game, you probably will have, felt comfortable buying a couple of new arts, experimenting with things, but certain things might have kind of gone over your head. You might not know exactly how to approach your builds, so having some bespoke tutorials that don't necessarily interrupt the flow of your gameplay and don't force you to come to a screeching halt, but do reward you for taking the time to and the patience to break off for a little bit and study, like to do your homework, I think makes a lot of sense. I think it's a good compromise, as opposed to just trying to cram the tutorials into the full level. And I just remembered, I definitely want to do a stream sometime soon playing through the opening 4 hours or so of Breath of the Wild. I really kind of disliked Breath of the Wild overall, but I have to say the opening hours of it are a masterclass in game design. And ironically, if they had just released The Great Plateau as like its own game with a different name, I probably would have given it like a 9 out of 10. It's just everything else that comes after that that I don't think lives up to the promise of The Great Plateau. But man, is that area just so fucking immaculately crafted. So I really, really want to. I think that's what I'm gonna do for next stream. I'll put up a poll if people want me to continue with AC for a little bit, but if not, like whenever we wrap up on this, I'm gonna move on to Breath of the Wild and just like really take a long time examining the intro to that game because it's so fucking good. Like it's up there with it's even I think it's even stronger than Elden Ring's opening, and that's saying something. So one way to assemble an AC is to install ranged weapons to both hands. This is known as the double trigger style among veteran pilots. I like that they make that like a diegetic thing, right? It's not they still try. I mean, like obviously we have like the mouse buttons in there, but they still try to keep the meta elements like the tutorial windows somewhat anchored in the world by saying like, oh yes, welcome pilots to the totally not immersion breaking or fourth wall breaking tutorial. I am I am a diegetic agent that belongs in this world who's instructing you, which I appreciate. Obviously, there's going to be some compromises with that, but they do a good job of trying to keep everything feeling like it's all like rooted in the same interface and stuff like that. Anyway, double trigger assemblies using machine guns or assembly weapons can destroy enemies at a reliable pace and are suited for taking on multiple enemies at once. Okay, so cool. We not only have an example of a build that is new and interesting and compelling combined with a new like aesthetic and everything, but we also have an example of its practical wow, that thing's fast, of its practical use in combat, right? So, and what sorts of targets it's effective against. Oh yeah, that feels really good. I might actually have to try that out. This feels great. Nice. I can't do without a melee weapon though. The mobility of an AC is greatly influenced by its overall weight and the type of boosters installed. This AC is fitted with boosters that have a short, quick boost reload time spec, which allows it to outpace enemies with consecutive quick boost. Okay. Yeah, so. The generator installed to your AC greatly influences the rest of the assembly, from the selection of usable parts to the basic performance of the AC. This AC is equipped with a generator that prioritizes EN capacity in order to allow extensive use of aerial maneuvers and quick boosts. Does that make sense? This feels like a very versatile, very responsive, very nimble build. The fire control system installed to the AC affects target tracking at close, medium, long range, and missile lock-on / multi-lock time. This AC is equipped with an FCS specialized for close range combat, allowing it to reliably land attacks using its high firepower weapons. Okay, so let's give that a try. Nice, okay. Yeah, it does definitely feel like this AC is designed to kind of get in and close ranks with the enemy as quickly as possible, and basically just like melt them down. It feels a little bit, he doesn't have a ton of survivability itself, so it's really kind of almost like an assassin in a way. The weapons and selection of parts used to assemble the AC determine its ideal combat range and style. This AC is equipped with 4 range weapons, especially concentrated fire at medium range. Cool. Yep, that felt good. That felt really good. Of course, like as you start to maneuver away from the enemies, you start to realize that the weapon efficacy like falls off a little bit. But that does feel really good to use. Kind of weaken them up, like put a couple of cracks in their armor with the rapid fire weapons, and then go in for the kill with the bazooka or whatever that was on the left shoulder. Feels very satisfying. Oh yeah, and that's great, right? What a great way of encouraging you to mess with builds. Like they don't give you the full like entire spec right out of the gate, but they do give you like the core element that is the most defining characteristic of that build that you just played with. Oh, actually they do give you quite a bit. Okay, so let's just do that, right? Let's say, okay, the game has now given me new tools. Let's go try them all and see what changes. So this increases my energy capacity. It's got basically less stamina recovery, but overall it's like a big boost pretty much across the board. This FCS is for close range combat, so let's put that in. Let's just see how everything changes when we like switch things up. and then combine it with what we have thus far. Now, we do have quite a bit of money from the previous sortie. I remember that plasma and laser rifles, laser weapons, were not my favorite in the past, so I'm going to skip those for now. Although I do really like the laser missile launchers, so I'm going to, or plasma missile launchers rather. So I'm going to get this up, and I'm going to see. Let's see, lightweight core. Yeah, I do like the Nachtreiher core quite a bit. Um, my weight is going to go down quite a bit though, but let's just see what happens if we experiment. Like, I'm always kind of curious about how games handle the player being kind of stupid and getting themselves into trouble. Like, what options does the game give you for getting yourself out of, like, committing to a bad build or something like that? But we'll see. Well, first, obviously we're going to do the training, and that's going to change our build again, but whatever. Saria says, sorry, I got quiet. My girlfriend peered over to watch for a bit before going back to Metroid. She started talking about how she wished there was a Voltron game. And I was like, wait, hold on, you're cooking. So we just started yapping about Voltron and how it'd be such a cool open world mech game. Dude, you seem to have a really fucking awesome girlfriend. Please never feel like you have to apologize for actually focusing on the human partner that you have who is totally badass instead of listening to a stranger on the internet talk about robots. It's really, really cool. I appreciate that you're here and that you're so engaged in the conversation and all that, but as always, no obligation, no commitment or whatever. You do what you got to do, come in and out as you please. I always appreciate having you here one way or the other, and I'm glad that you guys are vibing, especially after she triggered you, knowing that she would trigger you. I'm glad that you guys are connecting on something. That kind of reminds me though, have you played or gotten invested at all in like the fall of Cybertron games that were, I think we talked about them last time, right? Like Platinum Games put out some Transformers games that were pretty good, if I remember correctly. Okay, so reverse joint leg units excel at jumping. You can also leverage their leg strength to improve quick boosts. These leg units are also capable of high jumps that do not consume energy, making it easier. Yeah. So I do very much like the reverse joint builds quite a bit. Wow, this plasma cannon is better than I remember. The left shoulder grenade cannon on this AC fires explosive rounds that cause area damage upon impact. When using weapons of this nature, you can exploit area damage to great effect. Yeah, that makes sense. But that makes sense. Like I feel like this is a good way of getting you to understand the strengths and weaknesses of this particular build, like, or like having you synergize with multiple different things simultaneously, right? They want you to understand that if you increase like your aerial maneuverability, it's not just giving you more options in terms of, you know, exploring and navigating the space, but it actually synergizes with different weapons. So when you're making choices about how to build your AC, being mindful of how the weapons and the movement verbs, how the overall feel, maneuverability, positioning of the AC synergizes with the weapons. Like, you're not just like building a mobile platform and then attaching weapons to it. You are constructing, ideally, if you really solve the puzzle, so to speak, of mech building, if you play into the game of mech building in and of itself, you are developing like a gestalt almost of a machine that incorporates all these different elements in synergy. Each part of the mech should complement each other part of the mech. And there are various ways to do that, right? Like, you can go glass cannon, you can go full on like just unga bunga, like missile launchers and or like grenades and bazookas. You can go melee, I guess. You can go sniper. There are definitely build archetypes that are less balanced and fine tuned, but I think, you know, in Elden Ring, your character basically always moves the same. Granted, there are, you know, heavy, medium, and light builds, quote unquote, in terms of the amount of armor that you equip and your shields and stuff like that. Obviously, like playing a build that uses a shield actively versus dodges versus parries. Although I never really got into parrying in the Souls games apart from Sekiro. You know, it still feels like there are builds, so to speak, in terms of your weight and your maneuvering through the game. But for the most part, the expressiveness is going to come down to the style of weapons that you use, as opposed to your navigation. And there is a much more immediate, elaborate, and visceral connection between movement and weaponry in this game that I think, honestly, like, even despite having finished the game before, I still feel like I'm only barely scratching the surface of. There's so much depth that I think it's honestly like pretty intimidating, especially to a new player, which is why I think this game, part of the reason why this game is so great is because it does such a great job of introducing you to essentially like this nearly limitless array of different options, but also keeping it simple and understandable, and keeping the game relatively well balanced so that you can. It's kind of hard for you to totally and utterly fuck up. Like, no matter what you put together, you'll still be able to accomplish something unless you're really, really trying to to make a piece of shit. Right? There's gonna be an advantage and a disadvantage to pretty much anything you do. But man, if you can hit that sweet spot where you're like covering all your bases, whether it's for a balanced build or a themed build that's really focusing on one thing or another, um, it feels so great to finally like have the accumulation of all your knowledge over the course of the game, all your experimentation, your trial and error, finally accumulate in like the one build where everything finally clicks. It's so fucking good, as opposed to like, and the ability to change that at any time as well is so empowering. One of the things that I hope From Software studies from this game and finds a way to incorporate back into the rest of the Souls series is like, I personally, I love Elden Ring. I've spent over 500 hours with it, and I would love to play through the DLC again and again. But like, I just I just tried to give it another playthrough, and it took me about 50 hours just to get to the point where I felt like I was prepared to start the DLC. And then when I did, I was like, I'm kind of done with this. Like, I spent all this time like going through the motions of combat and everything just to get here. And by the time I got there, I was like, oh shit, I committed to this build, I committed to this play style, and now I kind of want to experiment and do other things with the stuff in the DLC specifically. And I feel like I have to kind of go back and redo everything. Like, granted, I can go to Renala and respec with a larval tier. Granted, like, I can go grind for mats and like go get the bell bearings and whatever, but it feels like so inflexible in terms of you know being able to actually swap your character around and be modular and really mix and match to find the things that really fit. And if you made the wrong decisions, it feels like a massive commitment of time to readjust and relearn. Whereas this game, obviously you lose the sort of traditional old school RPG building, which can be frustrating. Like, I guess, like, to kind of contradict myself, I was pretty bitter about the way Blizzard handled moving from Diablo 2 to Diablo 3 in terms of skill trees and stats and stuff like that. At first, I really didn't like the rune system. I didn't like the fact that everything felt so not intangible. Like, I don't know. There was no sense of like commitment and risk to investing a skill point in anything because you could always just like swap out the runes. But at the end of the day, that meant that essentially by the time you got to the max level for your character, you had access to every ability that you could mix and match and experiment with as you chose. And you didn't have to go back and play like another 30 to 50 hours if you felt like you fucked something up and just wanted to get back to where you were, right? So, I don't know. It's a real challenge figuring out how to um, make the resources that let you level up and embellish your character feel scarce and therefore valuable, but to balance that with the ability to have it be flexible and modular to the point where like players don't get frustrated and feel like they've wasted their time if they don't like the way they're playing. It's hard, and I think it doesn't always work the same way in any given game, but man, does it work really well in this game for sure. Um, let's see. So yeah, now we have an introduction to different types of weapons, like different categories, different classes, etc. This is almost like a sorcery build, something like an elemental build. Energy weapons produce heat when fired, and this can ultimately result in overheating. When overheated, the weapon will temporarily be disabled, but functionality will regain. Blah blah blah. Avoid overheating by monitoring your rate of fire. Yeah, that makes sense. You know, as many builds as I've tried, as many things as I've tried to mess with over the course of this game, I still like can't get away from having a um a melee weapon in my left hand. Something about it just feels so correct that like I can't abide not having it. Ricocheting will occur when enemies have high defense, significantly reducing the damage they take. Counter out this, try attacking closer range. Right, that makes sense. Okay. Gotta get better at like stopping on a dime. That is very satisfying too. That like smack of electricity, that sound there is like so satisfying. Yeah, so I don't know how to describe it, but something about this AC just doesn't feel like it's clicking, like it viscerally doesn't feel correct in my hands, which I'm sure will be the opposite for some people. I think some players will pick this up and it'll just feel right, which is a very difficult thing to explain, but it makes a lot of sense. Once you start like really getting a sense of connection with your AC, it just starts to feel again like an instrument that you're playing, you know. And if certain builds will just start to feel natural and visceral to you, and others will start to stand out as feeling awkward or weird or whatever. Um, oh, sorry, I said I didn't like the Fall of Cybertron, but Transformers Devastation was so fucking sick, and it looked just like the fucking comic books. Oh, is that a video game as well, or was that one of the movies? I'll have to check it out if it has your vote. Literally, it's why Ultimate Spider-Man is by far the best Spider-Man game. Oh, it must be a game then. To me, because you're literally playing the fucking comic book. The cutscenes even act like comic panels. That's really cool. I really like that. Yeah, like they're animated, but the way they're framed is like a comic. I love that shit. Yeah. Um, that reminds me. Have you ever heard of a game called? I think it's X111, but it's obviously it's 13, right? Like the game is called 13, but it's spelled out with the Roman numerals. So some people call it like X3 or whatever. Um, but yeah, it's done in like a cell shading style, for lack of a better phrase, and it feels kind of like playing a comic book. I played it a little bit. I don't feel like it was perfectly realized. Like it feels pretty clunky. Um, but for what it is, that there's not that many games at all that embrace that kind of like comic book style and pull it off with as much panache as that game does.
To assist with a mission the corporations are calling Operation Wall Climber.
This is V2 Snell, leader of the Vesper 2nd Squad. I will chair the briefing for this mission. This is an operation of my own design. Consider it a privilege to be called to
This fucking guy.
You will be attacking the Wall, a key trading outpost fortified by the Rubicon Liberation Front. The rabble have formed a defensive line comprised of artillery and MT squads. Break through the line, then make your way to the top of the wall. There you shall find the Juggernaut, a mobile heavy artillery platform. Destroy it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how well it holds up. Sorry, you might like it, but it's also like it was already pretty janky when it first came out. I think it came out like 15 years ago, so you might not like it.
Glorious hopes to be dashed. Do try not to die like a dog out there.
Yeah, say what you will about the voice acting if you like it or don't, but the cast of characters is very charming and very like colorful
Is to take the Liberation Front fortress, the Wall.
and varied as well.
Show them you're worth the credits. 621.
You also get to meet the best character in the game very soon. Somebody.
Activating combat mode.
I just gotta. I just gotta reply to a comment. And somebody just said, "Bro, suck a lemon." What the fuck does that even mean? Okay. I don't even know if I'm supposed to be upset about that or what, but I mean, I guess there's some good vitamin C to be found.
We'll start by clearing
I'll take it.
the
I'll
way.
take it under advisement.
Take out the Gatling cannons protecting the city, and the Baus Tetrapod MT further in. There's heavy fire coming from up top. 621.
Yeah, I do really like the fact that the tetrapods have kind of been like presented as like significant threats, so that I'm repeating what I was saying before, but like when you do eventually manage to get your hands on one, it feels like you're subverting that power that you've been fighting against. It's really cool. Oh shit. Gotta watch out for that. Oh wow. I wasn't expecting that level of a hit. Yeah, this game just also feels fucking great. Like even if you're taking hits or giving hits, like whatever it is, everything just feels like so beautifully choreographed as well.
Cannons destroyed. The friendly MT squad will take care of the city. You take care of the Baus Tetrapod MT 621.
The Baus.
They're in the city.
Oh shit. Arquebus, the marking us. Let's see. I know we're technically only supposed to do a limited amount of things here, but I like clearing out all the stuff. Like feeling like I'm at the center of the action, you know. I think there's a couple more above me too. Yeah, here we go. And I do like the fact that like you get rewarded for every little thing you help clear out. It kind of feels appropriate. Gives you more stuff to play with when it comes time to get back to the shops and all that. The music too is just like, it's so harrowing. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's like they do such a great job of setting the tone with the music. It feels almost like, I don't know how to describe it, but almost like machines coming to life. It the synthesizers that they use all have like a very kind of groaning, moaning, almost like digital whale song quality to them that makes it feel, yeah, like I don't know, like the metal is achieving sentience or something and then performing like this weird distorted song. I fucking love it. Just makes everything feel so like hollow but alive at the same time. I don't know. It just seems like very fitting for the setting. Yeah, I chose the wrong missiles for that. That's okay. Oh, he saw me. Oh shit, wow, okay. Yeah, I gotta recognize that getting in close can help me, but also, like, that advantage could also pertain to the enemies as well. So being careless about that is not necessarily to my advantage. It's so, like, the cadence of the battle can switch so quickly from being, like, completely in your favor to you being completely dominated too. It's sort of like, this changes depending on your build, of course, but everything after a certain point starts to feel like a glass cannon, like you and the enemies, except for the big bosses. And so it really does feel like you can go from being like completely dominating and in control and just like sweeping through the battlefield to desperately like clawing for survival at a moment's notice. And then once you realize that that can happen at any given time, it sets the stage. It like sets a tone for the rest of the game where you're always like a little bit cautious, and you feel this constant tension between feeling the need to be careful and considerate, but also like keeping up the pace, keeping up momentum. You never want to stay still for too long, but you also don't want to dash into battle. So I don't know, everything just feels like really visceral, like, I mean, feral almost, you know. And like you have a game where everything is mechanized, but in a way it kind of feels like, despite the fact that this is like insane future technology, it's almost like causing humanity to revert back to a more primal feral version of itself. It's really, really cool, and it's like all of that is just accomplished through like diegetic storytelling through the gameplay. God, it's so satisfying too. I think there was like an object over here that I was gonna scan though. Where was it? Was it here? Yeah, just listen to the soundtrack for a second. There's just like that constant mixture between pulses and roaring and like groans and stuff. Iguazu, I'm telling you, man, you gotta give Michigan a chance. He's different from the suits at HQ. Look, I know he's an asshole, but he's looking out for us, you know? Almost like you got a family here. Yeah. Oh, G4's last words. No one deserves punching out. It's the freaks who sent us on the suicide mission. Yeah, so even though these are like, you know, the puppet, just like you, they're kind of like puppets and dogs for these cynical, awful bullshit corporations. They do also have their sense of family. Like, maybe not so much Arquebus, but, or not so much like the Vespers, but definitely, the guns, right? Like, they have a sense of pride and honor amongst themselves, which you kind of come to respect inherently, I think, even if you don't agree with their overall ethics and approach to everything. You can at least respect the fact that they're fighting for each other. Ah, shit. Close. Nah. See, I totally ran out of energy there and got myself into a bad situation. Man, this thing is way tougher than I remember. I'm already out of repair kits. Let's see if I can get close. I keep totally misjudging my my dashes. I gotta really wait for the opening. Be a little bit more, get a little bit closer. Then, oh shit, no. They just keeps whittling down my ACS, and I can't get in. There we go. Finally.
Tetrapod MT eliminated. That significantly reduces the threat in the city. Access the bulkhead and break into
That was weird. I think we do get like a resupply Sherpa or whatever it's called. Honestly speaking of jank, what the fuck is happening in the gaming space? Says Saria. I get it, opinion change 100%, but suddenly it feels like everyone's like, actually this horrible game is a masterpiece. Oh, I'm curious, what kind of game are you talking about? No, bro, I'm sorry, I cannot and will not appreciate falling through the fucking floor or dying because I jumped on a fucking box just because I like the story of Sonic 06. Oh, yeah. So if you're talking about Sonic 06 specifically, I can understand people finding that game charming or even having like a, finding it, compelling for whatever reason. There's some interesting parts to it, but it's also just like broken, right? Like Sonic Adventure, I adore that game. I grew up with it, and it's just like really, really charming. I love the soundtrack. I still play songs from the soundtrack on my guitar all the time. But also like the PC port, and I think also the game.
But remember, even Balaam couldn't crack the wall.
One sec.
Count on him too much.
Right shoulder ammunition at 30%.
The shit. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, it's like I totally lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, the port of it is so terrible. There's a YouTuber who goes by the name of Cybershell, I think, and he has a long video. It's like an hour long, or maybe half an hour long. That's simply titled like, "Is Sonic Adventure DX a bad port?" And he kind of shows just like how broken it is, you know. And it's like, yeah, I have so much fondness for the original game, but you can't. There's nothing you can really do to get around that. Just like, it's hard to advocate for anybody actually picking up and playing the game if they don't have a Dreamcast, or unless there's like a fan patch, because it's just genuinely broken. And if you can't play the game reasonably, like, that's why it was so painful to watch the Game Grumps play through it. I don't really watch them as much anymore, but I used to be like really big into the Game Grumps, and I was just kind of sad at the way that they tore apart Sonic Adventure DX, because through no fault of their own, they just happened to be playing it on the port, and the port was fucking broken, and so they developed an opinion of the base game of the game overall based on the terrible port. So yeah, I mean, like, it's hard to overstate the influence and hence the damage that can be done by a remaster or a remake in terms of either failing to uphold or indeed like completely tarnishing and ruining the legacy of the original game that it's based on. And I'm gonna like go on a slight tangent here for a second because I am working on a remake right now, and this is not true of everybody on the team, but it's become pretty clear to me that basically the parent company that is commissioning the remake really does see it as like a commission job, right? They wanted to hire a team to just do the job, do the task, and deliver the deliverable, and didn't really want to have to think about it very much. Unfortunately, there's a bunch of stuff that needs direction, and they just fucking refuse to give it because they don't want to think about it. They just want the task done. And so it's kind of become a mess. Not everybody, but a lot of people have become like cynical and jaded about it. And it just like morale is super low. Nobody's having a good time. And nobody feels empowered to really like push the game to what it can be. It's extremely fucking discouraging. But that being said, I on the one hand, I can understand, like, from a business standpoint, wanting to commission a remake or remaster of a game. On the other hand, though, the only reason why we have a job on this, why we have the money to do this, the opportunities to do this, and, you know, the ability to pay our bills and advance our careers is because the original developers made the original fucking game in the first place. And it's so compelling, however many years later, that we think we can repackage it and sell it again. So at least like a baseline modicum level of respect is due to the original developers, if for no other reason than that you're probably going to want to try and repackage it again, or like repackage the sequel if there is one or something like that. And it's just like people like above don't understand that shit doesn't work. You can't just like commission something like that, like a singular work of art. It doesn't work that way. You have to every game, regardless of whether it's a remake or a remaster, is its own like individual work of art. And if you don't treat it like that, then shit falls apart. And people don't want to accept that because they don't want to be as invested in it as needs to happen. And then shit just falls apart, and it makes the original look bad. Like this game that I'm working on now, there are people who will never play the original because they'll be like, oh, that shit's too old, it's too broken, the graphics aren't good enough, right? And the only experience they will ever get is this piss poor imitation of it. And it's like really disrespectful to the art that it's being built upon. So, I mean, I'm trying not to be too negative. At the end of the day, it's like when I show up to work these days, I'm really just doing it for my teammates. I really am not invested at all in the success of the parent company that contracted us. I really am just looking for opportunities to make the lives of my teammates easier. Like, what can I do to help this person with their job? If I make sure to organize my shit and like get my work done early, then I can help somebody else out, right? And we're all looking out for each other. And then maybe if we do that, we can try to make the game a little bit better for the customers at the end of the day. That's what we're hoping, you know. If I can clear out some time by doing all of the stupid shit that I don't really think is going anywhere, but I can get it done, then that leaves room maybe at the end for a little bit of pushing harder on those things that more matter to the OG fans or whatever. It's really, really frustrating. I don't know why I don't know why I went on this tangent, but it's just like, oh yeah, because like now like people will play, they'll be like, oh, I've heard so much shit about like how great Sonic Sonic Adventure was, and they'll pick up DX and they'll be like, wow, this whole generation of people must be deluded for thinking that this pile of ass was ever good. And it's like, no, you didn't get the opportunity, you didn't get the chance to see it the way we did. We're all being cheated, right? And it's just like that just happens because the project was treated through no fault of the developers on that team. I'm sure they tried really hard to do the best they could with the resources they had, meaning the team who did the DX port. But like, because of like 99% of the time, because of lack of resources, because of lack of proper management, it's just like they were never gonna succeed because they didn't have the resources they needed to. And now not only them, but the original team gets blamed for it post hoc, like decades later, which is fucked up. And like, yeah, look, on every development team, there are people who are lazy and checked out, who do sloppy work, who don't really care. But I will say that they are in the vast minority. And also, like, every individual person, myself included, will have bad days, maybe even bad weeks or months where we're not performing as well as we could have. We get distracted, we make mistakes, right? But at the end of the day, I can say with full confidence that, like, the vast majority of problems that I as a developer have run into on every project come from a small handful of people with a disproportionate amount of power and influence not knowing what the fuck to do with that power and influence and not really caring. And that having this massive, I don't even want to say trickle down, more like a fucking deluge of negative effect on everybody else on the team. And they don't fucking learn. It's so fucking frustrating.
You ready to climb the wall?
Yes, I am. Let's take down capitalism manifest.
That's the juggernaut. Heavy
So the game's first, like, official boss fight, which is actually, like, pretty late in the game when you consider it for, like, how long it took us to get to. Well, no, I guess, like, the filter copter from before was a boss fight, right? Like, that counts too.
That's the stuff.
But it's kind of funny that, like, the individual tetrapod from before was arguably more of a threat than this thing, although that's in large part due to, like, Rusty being a fucking boss. Rusty's the real boss. Ah, shit.
I just got an update from Snail in command. We've got enemy reinforcements incoming. If I don't intercept them, we're both toast. I hate to leave you like this. You'll have to finish without me.
I do kind of wish you had the option to, like, stick with Rusty or go, like, defeat those enemies on your own. But I mean, I can't really see a justification from a game design standpoint of, like, breaking the player free from this boss fight, right? I'm playing very sloppily, but the game is letting me, so I'm just, like, going bows to the wall. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Oh, shit. Okay. Well, that didn't pay off. Can I get behind it? Damn it. Come on. Okay, I think I can do it. Yes. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, that was incredibly unoptimized, incredibly scrappy, but also, like, I feel like I could make the calculation of how much damage I could take and try to, like, gamble on it, which felt really cool in and of itself.
It seems he knew who you really are. It won't matter. I've taken that contingency into account.
Wink. Wink. There's always a little bit of silliness, a little bit of humor to be found in these games.
One new message.
We're war
me.
buddies now. I think I should tell you something. During Operation Wall Climber, Arquebus was planning to sacrifice you. The plan was to use independent mercenaries to clear the way so that the Vespers could step in and take over.
Unsurprising.
But instead, you took the wall. The higher-ups are going to remember you now, that's for sure. As will I.
This is a really minor nitpick, but I do kind of wish that they had the time to make a proper audio visualizer plugin so that we were actually seeing the waveform of the audio displayed instead of just, like, that looping graphic that showed up there. It's actually not all that hard to do. Basically, the way I've never tried to do it myself, but I'm probably going to for an upcoming project. The way to do it is you essentially take the incoming frequency data and you divide it up into chunks, like into individual bars, and then over the course of a few frames, you sample, like, how much total amplitude is within each of those frequency ranges, and you just render that out as a float, and then you can use that float to drive the height of a bar or something like that, or, you know, you can use it to drive, like, a point on a graph that's being drawn in real time. Unreal Engine 5 actually has a really cool system called Quartz, where you can it's Quartz and Synesthesia, these two plugins that work hand in hand, and basically it analyzes it does like a FFT, a fast Fourier transform on an incoming audio signal, and then exports that into data that then you can use to drive parameters like lights or VFX. I saw somebody on Instagram recently use this to like drive real-time face morphing. So basically they had like a character who had all these different like triggers set up on their face, and they were playing like an Aphex Twin song, and each instrument in the song was triggering like a different bone and a different muscle on their face. It was like twitching and spazzing and writhing along with the music. Really fucking creepy. Also really cool and really expressive. I'm kind of so if you work on audio in games, chances are you will use a software called Wise or a software called Fmod, which are basically all-in-one audio solutions that you just plug into another game engine like Unreal or Unity, and they are great. I love them, and they solve so many problems, but they're so ubiquitous and so useful and intuitive now that it's sometimes kind of hard to justify not using them unless you dedicate like an audio programmer to helping build bespoke tools for your project. So what happens is like the folks at Unreal are developing this really fucking cool tech that's really innovative and really interesting, and it just kind of sits in a box because, like, I don't know, like, I'm sure some teams out there are using it, but a lot of the higher profile studios are probably going to gravitate towards using the middleware like Wise or Fmod because that's what's known to be effective. It's less risky, it's more immediate, everybody already knows it, so they can jump on board. You know, that's why was that game that recently switched to, was it the Halo remake or whatever, that was like, oh, we're going to switch to Unreal Engine 5 because it's easier for external contractors to pick it up and to learn how to work with it than it is to work with our Slipspace engine or Frostbite or whatever it's called, right? So, you know, it's great. Like, anybody can pick up Unreal, anybody can pick up Wise, they can get it for free, they can install it, they can learn how to use it without limitations. Well, Wise has like a 200 asset limitation or something, but whatever, that's like, you know, plenty to get started. And because of that, because of like how democratized it is, which is a good thing, the caveat of it though is that everything is like weirdly kind of getting funneled towards one solution. And I think, you know, compared to the Wild West of game devs back in like the PS2 era, excuse me, there's less of a desire to experiment and fuck around and try to like do deep dives into bespoke, unique tools, which is kind of sad because there's sort of this attitude, I guess, where like some people in the industry feel like, well, we already solved the problem. It's already working for us. Why would we continue to, you know, like, to push it any further when we clearly have already solved the problem? You know what I mean? So, like, a little unfortunate. Let's see. Vertical missile launcher, active homing, missile launcher, on targets during lightning importance. Yeah, I want to try messing with some more missiles. I really love the missiles. Buckler, pulse shield, laser cannon, vertical. Let's try that. And let's see. I definitely want this at some point. But for now, let's see what legs do we have. I love the quad legs, the tetrapods at some point. I want to get that for sure. Yeah, let's get these. Okay. So I'm just going to play for a little bit longer. I think I'll maybe do one more mission. I think I've kind of, hopefully, you know, demonstrated what I like about this game, what I think it does effectively. I can put up a poll and see if people want me to continue playing, but at this point, it starts to get into like a lot of build micromanagement and iteration, and I think it might make more sense for us to move on to another title, but I'll ask how people feel about it. Saria says, I just find it jarring because it's like, yeah, actually Rayman Origins was bad, and it's like, the critically acclaimed game that revived Rayman is bad. Are you sure you just didn't like it? Yeah, so I never really got that deep into the Rayman games, but do you know I forget what game it's from, but there's like this whole musical sequence that you're basically playing like a music video in real time to the song Black Betty, and it's just like, you can't have a game with this in it and say it's bad. I'm sorry, that's not allowed, right? Like, It's so innovative, it's so expressive, it's so joyful, it's just so fucking cool.
Got a job for you, 621. The client is the Rubicon Liberation Front. Here's the briefing.
The loss of the wall dealt us a heavy blow. Yet, we believe you are more than a corporate pawn. Perhaps we can even work together. I want you to investigate Baus Arsenal number 2, a major MT factory in the Bellius region. The Baus Corporation sells to anyone, but they've been essential to maintaining our firepower. Now, their second arsenal has gone silent overnight. If it were only a comms failure, a simple check-in would do. But, well, after the Strider, more cautious voices have gained influence. This isn't our finest moment, but would appreciate your help.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You've been working so fucking hard to like subvert this particular organization, but they're so desperate, maybe even naively hopeful, that they reach out to you, the one person who's subverting their whole fucking operation, to be like, that's cool. We see that you're really good at kicking our asses. Have you considered not doing that? We've got money, but like, I don't think I fully understand the lore, but it seems like they themselves were directly, in a way, sponsoring some of the corporations that they are antagonistic towards, because it's like, okay, I fucking hate you, but in order to kill you, I'm going to need a gun, and you have the gun, and I have money, so will you please sell me the gun that I'm going to then use to kill you? And then the corporation is like, yeah, okay, sure. I mean, that's a sale, right? And it's like, okay, I'm gonna use this to shoot you, though. You know that, right? And they're like, yeah, we have an even bigger gun, though. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so it's like this really weird, like, at a certain point, I guess maybe part of what the game is saying, the narrative is trying to imply, is that at a certain point, when you really break it down, warfare just becomes completely fucking ridiculous and ludicrous. And it probably already is, but when you consider all of the extremely gross, cynical corporate, finagling and string pulling behind the scenes, it just further drives the point home that, like, it's really hard to genuinely subscribe to, like, the narratives of glory and triumph and, heroic acts and stuff like that, when the reality of it is that there's all this disgusting hypocritical profiteering that's driving the entire, like, gross, rusted, oily engine of war, that's like made manifest very explicitly on screen with these fucking beautiful, terrifying, devastating, but also like heaving, heavy, rusty, kind of beautiful and disgusting at the same time, like monstrous machines. I really think this game has a lot to say about the nature of war and like satirizing it while also making it feel badass. It like makes you feel guilty for liking it as much as you do, but works really hard to get you to like it in the first place. It's like a game that's full of contradictions. Zarya says, oh, that's Rayman Legends. Oh, wait. He said, oh, you see we were wrong. Mario Odyssey is bad. I didn't like it either. Is that what you mean? You don't like it because that game is not poorly made. What are we talking about? I actually want to talk to you about that in a second, but let me read the next message. That's Rayman. Oh, Rayman Legends. Okay. It actually has Rayman Origins remade within the game, so if you're interested, I recommend playing it. It's very fast-paced, but it's not all that hard for a platformer. Yeah, I've gotten like 2 or 3 hours into it. I should go back and play it some more. Let me do this mission, but I want to talk to you about Mario Odyssey. It would actually be fun to play Odyssey on stream at some point as well.
Expect the unexpected.
So, Odyssey is a game that I think is incredibly well crafted in certain regards. Objectively, the game is very well polished. It is extremely responsive and satisfying to play, to navigate the world and stuff like that. I think, it's like very clearly masterfully crafted, and is joyous to just spend time navigating and inhabiting that world. Once I figured out some of the combos you could do with like hat tricks, jumping on your hat, like suspending yourself in midair, one of the first like pieces of footage I ever shared of myself playing a video game was just getting to a very obvious and very like easily accessible, relatively speaking, platform. But the way that I got up to that platform was in one of the little like side challenge levels was through my own creativity in like doing this crazy like wall kick into a hat throw, bounce off the hat, then into another wall kick combo that I came up with. And it's like I love games like that where they give you a compelling set of tools and then kind of leave it up to you to figure out what to do with them and just kind of nudge you in the right direction. I feel like that like Mario Odyssey is exceptional at doing that. However, I also feel like many of the individual tasks that you are given over the course of the game are very kind of rudimentary and pandering. Um, I really don't like the fact that they expanded the standard like 128 stars to whatever it was, like 550. I really, really, really don't like the way that stars have been converted into like moons and multi moons, because what it results in is like when you when you get back to your ship after completing like 10 or 12 um, little mini moon missions over the course of a level, you just get this thing that feels like a slot machine, right? Like you have this whole cache of banked moons essentially, and you wind up having them all go into the Odyssey at once, and it's like a fucking slot machine. You know, ding, 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 ding. And I think the overall like schedule of reinforcement, especially since the game is like geared towards a younger audience, the overall schedule of reinforcement and the way that the rewards are kind of doled out is like I don't want to be too like put too fine a point on it, but it feels pretty cynical, feels pretty manipulative. It feels like it's diving into a slightly pandering, slightly addictive sort of shit out sort of style, and I can't objectively say that it's like bad per se, but it feels sketchy. And when I played the game, like I never really felt like I was being challenged. I never really felt like I was, which isn't necessary. Like you don't have to challenge people in a Mario game per se. It's okay to have like an easy Mario game, but I also felt like I was being rewarded so heavily and so like out of proportion for the tasks that I was doing that I also it really felt like they were just trying to spike dopamine as often as possible, and I don't think that's super healthy. And so I wound up kind of getting grossed out by the game. Now you can make the argument that like, well, there's a special sound that plays every time you kill an enemy, and you're killing thousands of enemies in something like Dark Souls and Elden Ring. That is literally just a dopamine spike. So it's like every single game relies on, you know, tickling your neurotransmitters at very finely tuned intervals. If like those general principles apply to like every single fucking game under the sun, and if they didn't work, then video games like wouldn't be appealing beyond a narrative level in all likelihood. But that being said, there was something about it that just felt kind of skeezy to me. Um, and then, you know, I don't know, comparing like Ocarina of Time with the level of challenge and the level of like, uh, I guess, commitment that you would need to use to figure certain things out in that game compared to Breath of the Wild, like how, you know, you literally any time you score a hit on an enemy, you have like a reassuring voice in your ear telling you like, good job, you did it, you really hit the enemy, you hit the enemy right in its weak spot, good, wow, that's like the most incredible thing ever. I don't know, I'm also like extremely I find it incredibly boring and useless when people are like, you know, I'm sorry, hang on. I'm getting like dealing with way too many threads. Okay, so I feel like the older games challenge you a bit more in certain regards, and the way in which they reward challenge is more natural and diegetic. For example, like I don't need I didn't need Navi in Ocarina of Time to compliment me every time I killed an enemy, right? Or every time I scored a hit on a boss. In fact, like losing Navi temporarily was one of the more compelling boss fight moments in that game. Um, but at the same time, I don't want to be one of those people who's like, well, modern games are just coddling people and treating them like babies, and it's like breeding a weak, soft generation. Like, there's very few things that are more disgusting to me than like this narrative about like so-called toxic empathy, or like how we can't be too nice to kids. We can't, we have to like keep pushing them and challenging them, and like grinding them into making them like tough adults and shit. Like that kind of like rhetoric really kind of sickens me. So I don't want to veer into that territory. But there was something about like fighting Puppet Ganon or whatever in the Forest Temple versus fighting one of the like Blight Ganon entities in Legend of Zelda in Breath of the Wild. It feels very different, right? There's a feeling of exploring this um, deep, dark, mysterious, like forgotten temple, and the only entity there that's really on your side is this little fairy, and you're both kind of looking out for each other. And like she'll give you advice, she'll give you hints every now and then, but like for the most part, it's like you're both kind of surviving together versus like fighting the water blight Ganon or whatever, and like anytime you do one of the like flurry rush dodges out of the way, you get a character over the intercom essentially saying, "Well done, Link. I've never seen anybody move like you, Link. You're going to defeat him for sure, Link. Ganon doesn't stand a chance against you. Wow, you hit him with your sword. I've never seen that happen." It's like, oh, okay. Like I feel like we're maybe oversteering a little too much to the other direction. And of course, like my dumb robot ass has to like jump right into it and ruin it.
Traces of coral. Must have been an underground vein. Mouse was hiding a well all this time. Above you.
Ooh, that little musical stinger there was great. Oops. Oof. This AC does not have enough. Oh my god. Okay, I'm getting overwhelmed.
No repair kits remaining.
There's one down. Excellent. Okay. Let's see. I do like the application of stealth in this fight on behalf of the enemies. Is really cool. Okay, coming in for the kill. Nice. Okay, might still be able to do this. It's gonna be tight, but
Another dealt with.
see.
Stay focused, 621.
Yeah, I mean, like it's kind of hard intuitively, I think, to imagine stealth working well in a game like this, but having invisible enemies is actually extremely compelling if it's done right. And I think it is done right here. It's an interesting challenge. Keeps you on your guard, keeps you moving. Oh, cool. There's one. Oh, shit. Of course, does make for a fairly overwhelming challenge when your radar is so unreliable. I get it. Almost. That one's down. One more. I do love this feeling of like basically being like just barely hanging on sometimes in this game. What was it? Where did it go? What the hell? Is it over here? Shit. Well, the tension that's created by these things just hiding out and waiting to ambush you is incredible, genuinely. Oh, no! Oh, come on, don't dodge it. Okay. Come on. See what I mean? It's like we're both like barely clinging for survival.
30%.
Okay. Oh my god. It was so tense.
Seems that's the last of them.
I genuinely wonder if there's like
Check in
something
Head back and rest up 621.
there's something like under the hood where they're like giving you a few little extra health points at the end. So I hear that they did that in BioShock. They had a system called magic health points where basically like every once in a while, I'm pretty sure they do that in Dark Souls and Elden Ring too. Every once in a while, like if you have like let's say 10 health left and an enemy hits you for 10 damage, they will actually fudge the numbers and make the enemy do 9 damage so that you survive with 1 health to give you an extra shot. And part of me feels like that's like, well, that's dishonest, that's manipulative. They should always be totally straightforward. But I don't know, it does create these moments of like genuine drama and excitement and makes you feel like you're clinging on. So it's like benign manipulation, I guess you could say. But I do think it starts to stray into a weird concept of like, are you committing some sort of
Back 621.
low-key ethical violation by lying to your player in some way? I don't know. It's an interesting topic, I think.
That was just a drip coming from an underground vein, and it won't last long.
Yeah, see how the audio waveform doesn't actually follow the amplitude of the signal? It's just like a loop.
Registration number RB23. Call sign, Raven. Your records have been updated. Granting authorization to perform ACOS upgrades. Additional. All Mind hereby invites you to the Arena Combat Aptitude Evaluation Program. The Arena is a virtual combat simulator designed to support the development of registered mercenaries.
But they do a pretty good job of
To
quote-unquote
appraise
faking
and
it,
rank
right?
the mercenaries active on Rubicon.
I wonder
Forward to your
if we
participation.
break down that waveform, if I could like convert that into actual data and like play it back, is there like a hidden message in there? Saria says, if you're talking about the champions rooting for Link and telling him to watch out for attacks that got them killed, I don't understand why that's a problem, especially because they don't talk that much because you kill the bosses relatively quickly, and even if you don't, their dialogue isn't super consistent. Yeah, so I think I'm less hardline about this now. I think at the time I went from playing like Breath of the Wild to Odyssey or vice versa, and my personal opinion, which again it's like an emotional response, don't like take it as being subjective, was that the games felt like they were being overly pandering, and to me that was coming at the expense of the immersion that I personally wished I could have from the older games. I really I think probably my favorite levels from Ocarina are the forest temple and inside the Deku tree, because I really love, and this is why I love the Souls games so much, is that they captured this perfectly, the experience of coming across some place that feels like ancient and forlorn and decaying, and like you're kind of not supposed to be there, and you're uncovering these secrets that are kind of veiled in mystery and reverence. And to me, like, loneliness is a big part of what makes that feel as compelling as it did. Having like a companion there with you doesn't necessarily ruin that. I mean, obviously Navi's with you the whole time, but at the same time, Navi also feels not like a. She feels like kind of in the adventure with you as opposed to outside, looking in, if that makes sense. So to me, Navi's presence doesn't detract from that at all. And she isn't necessarily being reassuring. Like, I feel like her personality, she can be intimidated sometimes too. She can be a little flighty, like pun intended. And so, you know, it feels like it's all kind of committing to the emotional tone that I personally like in that. And I felt like, by comparison, you know, if I get to this big, horrible, awful, like blighted creature inside this massive, uh, you know, hybrid of technology and spiritual energy or whatever it is, I want to be fully immersed in that, in kind of the lonely reverence that I personally prefer from the older Zelda games. And I found that the chiming in and the reinforcement like the reinforcement that I was getting from the characters over the quote unquote intercom was way out of proportion for what I did. Like having a line at the end of the fight where they were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you just pulled that off," would be totally fine. But during the fight, I really wanted it to be about just me and Ganon, or me and the Blight or whatever, and then you know figuring out for myself based on like audio cues, based on visual feedback, whether or not what I was doing was impressive, and then coming to my own conclusions emotionally about how I felt about it. Whereas I felt like they were telling me how I was supposed to feel about the progress. They were informing me about how well I was doing as opposed to letting me track that myself. And I didn't personally like that. Now, that being said, I wonder genuinely if maybe kids in general or people in general, like if you were to market like research it, do people in general tend to prefer having that reassuring voice? If you asked me 5 years ago or whatever, I would have said this is objectively bad. It's ruining the blah, 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 blah. Now I'm much more like, I don't think it's objective. I just think it's a matter of like, what is the tone that they're going for? What is the message that they're trying to convey, and are they doing so effectively? And I think they were going for an experience that was a little less harrowing, a little bit more, reassuring and exciting and adventurous, so to speak. And there's nothing wrong with that. If my old self heard me say that, I would like spat on the floor. But now that I'm a little bit older, I'm like, I don't think that it's inherently a mistake. It's just like, I personally was hoping to get more of this aesthetic that meant a whole lot to me, more of this emotional experience that I was personally craving. And I do think that it is a very valuable and very special thing. And so I was sad to see that that was not there. At this point, though, I'm not prepared to take a hardline stance on what's objectively better or worse. It just wasn't what I was looking for. But then when I played Odyssey, I had to start to wonder, like, are there implications for... Because, like, I'm not the sort of... Fuck, I don't know how to phrase this, but, like, I haven't done enough research to know anything about this, really. So this is all just out-of-pocket stuff. But it's hard for me to feel like, as a game developer, that we need to be aware of the fact that, especially for younger players, we are training their minds to work in a certain way. Like, when you create something that generates like regular repeated chemical responses in somebody's brain, when you train them to perform certain behaviors and you give them rewards, when you embed lessons, whether that's lessons that are reinforced via gameplay, via like tactile feedback, or via narrative, we are teaching people things. We are training people's brains in a certain way. That might sound arrogant, but I think it's just a fact that, like, if you make a game and that game gets played by 1 million people, you might have at least a tiny bit of influence over 1 million people, and frankly, that should scare the shit out of you. Like, anybody who does anything publicly should be a little bit scared of what the implications of what they do are going to be on the people that they're doing it to, because you incur a certain responsibility with that. And so I'm very sensitive about, like, okay, if we design things in this way, what is actually going to be the tangible effect on people's brains when they play this? And for me, I don't know what the answer is, and I know this is going to sound like a rhetorical question or whatever. I don't mean it to, but I do have a bit of concern about, like, maybe a curiosity verging on concern is a better way to put it, about, like, if you take the average brain of a person playing Ocarina, like, for the first time, and the average brain of a person playing a modern game with more explicit vocal reinforcement, what do those two brains look like after that training and reward? Is one developing skill sets different than the other? Is one learning a different kind of problem solving than the other? And again, like, my intuition is to prefer the thing that I grew up with. But I don't know. It might actually genuinely be better for learning and development to have that reinforcement. I'm skeptical because that's not what I personally believe. But basically what I'm saying is, I think I noticed a shift in the way that Nintendo games were communicating with younger audiences that seemed to me to be a deviation from a style of instruction that I thought was very effective and useful in terms of developing problem-solving skills. And I was concerned that maybe we weren't going in the right direction, especially since I think around that time there was a game that came out, which is like, this is the Mario game that focuses explicitly on coin collection, right? They were doubling down on just like collecting coins. And so I'm like, okay, I don't want to be cynical about this, but like I don't trust the corporate game development to not just be looking for ways to get kids addicted, basically. So this is a whole long ass rant to basically just be like, it's just my opinion, right? Like I never did the research, I don't have the science to back it up, but I do think that maybe sometimes we're a little cavalier about how we design games, not just for kids, not just for younger audiences, just in general, right? And that at the time I was kind of concerned about where that was going, but I mean, it's almost been what 10 years since Breath of the Wild came out now, so I think it might be time to go back and give it another shot. I was definitely, I mean, like I gotta stop before I get on a whole thing, but I was definitely in like a much worse place. Not that I was in a bad place, but just like there's so much shit going on in my life, and I was like not on the right medication, and just like yeah, very very different time. Maybe I talk more about it on Discord rather than on the on the stream itself. Um, Saria says, I understand what you mean. You want a more of the old school style, and I honestly can get that. But I think there's also something powerful about the idea that now in this era, Link isn't alone. Yeah, absolutely. That can be a totally legitimate and totally powerful form of storytelling that can also, I think, maybe feeling like you're alone fighting against a fundamentally corrupt world and you're the only one that can save it isn't as compelling to some people, or even at least isn't the only kind of story you can tell. You can also tell a story about like connecting with other people and inheriting a legacy that's more active, and that collaboration leading to victory. I mean, that's a very Naruto sort of thing, right? Sure, he doesn't have Saria or Tetra. She prefers Tetra, so I'm calling her that. Oh, that's nice. Or Zelda or Midna, but he has actual allies in the fight with him. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. Right, because like the more of the divine beasts you do, like the more power gets contributed to the final fight with, well, the penultimate fight with Ganon, right? In Breath of the Wild, his dead friends whose souls are being held are telling him, "You have to win because you are all Hyrule has left. We know you got this." Yeah, that's kind of nice to feel like they're with you. I mean, for those who come after, right? They have to. They're part of that chain. You're the link in the chain. There we go. You're not just like, if there's no other connections in the chain, then what's the use of a link? So there's something smart in there somewhere. Pretend I said the smart version of that. Okay, well, I think personally I found this dip back into AC to be pretty fun. I'm kind of excited to explore other things, but I'd also be open to continuing to play in the coming weeks. So I will post a poll next Monday or Tuesday to see how people are feeling about it. But I'm probably going to pull out Breath of the Wild next week and see how that feels. Thank you so much, Saria, for hanging out tonight. Thank you to anybody who's checking out the VOD after the fact. I will be back Sunday with more Lightspeed Naruto. And hope that you guys do well.